Welcome back to the FitBiz podcast, everyone. I'm coming at you with my DJ Jordan voice. Really excited to talk to you today. My good friend, Mo. Mo's on the show. Mo is a really successful online fitness coach, which we're going to talk all about. And he also is a success coach within IFCA. So he also helps online health coaches, fitness coaches have their own success. And what's cool is, Mo, I do believe you're the first, let me think. Yeah, first success coach that we've had that I've had on the podcast who's not been through IFCA. So before we get into things, I'm not taking any credit for Mo's success. He built this without any of our tools, systems, which more than anything has been a really great asset to the team because he has unique perspectives and has built a really cool business. So Mo, done sucking your dick. How are you? Thank you for being on. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Thank you for the warm welcome, Jordan. Appreciate it. Yeah, happy to be here. Totally happy to be here. Excited.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic shirt. For those who can't see, I'm a big Hawaiian shirt fan, and that is really nice. I don't even know what kind of plant is that.
This one is, it's blue and like greenish.
I think those are maybe leaves from a pineapple tree. If I had
it
to
really
guess.
is. I think it's. I got it from Target.
Okay. Target Hawaiian shirts, man. Those are the best.
They are the best, and it's funny. Yeah. We're on office hour calls today, and Kevin was wearing a floral too, and I was like, "Hey, today's the day."
It's a good call, man. They're coming back. I went to, I think it was Dick's Sporting Goods the other day, and I walked out with 6 Hawaiian shirts.
That's perfect.
Man, that's such a dad move. Cool, man. Well, let's jump in. I'm excited to first just learn more about your story because Mo, I've gotten to know you somewhat, but not as much as I would like. So I think this is a cool opportunity for me and you guys to learn more about your, take me from birth through current and see if you can do it in under 3 minutes.
3 minutes, perfect. So I grew up.
I'm just kidding. You can take as long as you need.
No, I'll make it brief. But I grew up in Pakistan, so on the other side of the world, and 8,300 miles away. So grew up in Pakistan, in a village. So the farm life and all of that, very traditional. And dad was working in the Middle East because back home, moms don't work, so they take care of the kids. Dads are in another country working. And yeah, man, grew up, went to school, didn't really like school. And I remember being in second grade and being like, what's the point of school anyway? Right. So I had that entrepreneurial tendencies. And then I was in 8th grade when we found out, okay, I had my aunt here and she did the whole citizenship for us. And we ended up immigrating to America.
And you were 8 at this time, right? You said 8?
8th grade. So I was 13 years old. And so yeah, came here at the worst time possible. That was 2007, 2008 at the economic recession. And we came to Detroit. So out of all the places, the automotive is crashing. Dad can't find a job. We none of us really know English, and you're learning English, you're learning a new society, making new friends, new school system, new all of it, going through that while in 8th grade. That was the first big evolution in my life. And funny enough, that's when I started appreciating school and education and being hey, there's something about learning. There's power in this, right? And then, learn to live with very little because our parents taught us hey, respect money, all the, lower middle class things that you grow up with. And then, yeah, I promised myself, I was I'm going to be an all A student. So, but I remember being in 9th grade and being I don't have any real talent, but I can work really hard.
Sure.
So, and that I was okay, so if I really studied this geometry quiz or review, I can really ace the test. So I remember 10th grade, first semester, getting all A's and being I can do this. My system works. If I work hard enough, I can ace it. So that's literally what happened. High school, graduated with honors, went to college for engineering and science. And the goal was to become a medical doctor because that's what every immigrant goes into.
Of course. Yeah.
And
you are a complete failure otherwise, right?
Literally. So I started, started college at Kettering University, and yeah, graduated with computer science and bioinformatics degree, which is engineering and science. And then the goal was to go. What
was I've never actually heard of that degree. What's it called again?
Computer science is software engineering.
Well, I'm familiar with computer science, but
informatics. So
bioinformatics. Okay.
So bioinformaticists are biologists who program DNA, RNA, proteins into computer models.
Man, very cool.
Very cool. So all the DNA stuff, which is blowing up right now. And so that's what I studied. And after that, I took a gap year because I had worked in a hospital all throughout college. So at that point, 5 years into the hospital world, and I was man, do I really want to be a cardiologist at 72 and still working on a Friday at 8 p.m.?
Sure.
It just didn't look that fun. And most, you spend enough time in healthcare, you realize it wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I was okay, let's take a gap year. And at that time, I had two choices. One was to go get a master's in public health. Second was to go into corporate America. And corporate America was the hard choice. Getting in, like I already got into the public health program for master's in Philly, but I chose not to do that because the easiest thing to do. And it felt like I was delaying getting into the real world. And I wanted to get into the real world. So I went the corporate America route, got into healthcare consulting. And so, yeah, that my job was basically traveling all across America, working with different hospitals and basically doing what we do at IFCA, you know, hey, like, what's your vision? What are you trying to do? Why is this not working? And like just that on a higher level with hospitals. And then 2 months into that job, that was my dream job, Jordan. Like, I had a corporate credit card, like I was everything, 6 figures, living in Peoria, Illinois, when an average 21-year-old was working at Starbucks, right? Like I was a big shot.
I know Peoria real well. I lived in Chicago for a little while. So like,
really?
It's a dope place to live. Yeah.
That was my first 10, I lived there for 10 months. And I remember 2 months into that job, laying in bed at night and being like, you're not doing enough. You can do more. You can do more. You can do more. And I was like, okay, what can I do? So I remember going to a coffee shop, making a list of things. And I was like, I can build websites for small businesses due to computer science. I can do this. And one of those skills was I can build workout programs because I'd already done a men's physique show. So I was like, okay, cool. And during that time, Amanda Bucci, I think a lot of people would know her. I was following her content on social media and she like gave a testimonial to this business coach. And I remember like just started following that business coach. And then he messaged me one day, like a week after that day. He's like, yeah, what time, you know, like we can totally do this. Like, what are you trying to do? Kind of put me through the whole like setter process, got me on the call. And I had saved up like $2,500 to make my first student loan payment. And that program was $5K. And I will never forget the day. It was September 18 of 2017. And he's like, man, like, what else are you going to do? Like, how are you going to like, you can't figure it out on your own. So why don't you just come join us? Ended up risking it, you know, spent the 5K I had on that program. And the rest is history. So after that, stayed in corporate America for another 2 years, kept building my fitness audience and business. And, you know, one day got to a point where I was like, man, for the last 6 months, my fitness income has increased like more than my job's income full time. So then I took a week off and realized I made like more in a week than I did in like 3 months at my job. So then that's when I resigned and left on a very happy note. You know, I'm still friends with everybody at my job. Like my supervisor still comments on my posts sometimes. And so then, yeah, that was 3.5 years ago now. And now I have a small team and we do well. And now I'm at IFCA as well.
Man, really cool. You tell that story incredibly well too, man. So many different points that I want to like dig into more questions about that. Who was the coach? Was it Sterling Griffin?
Sterling Griffin. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So we know Sterling real well. He's in real estate. He's like in real estate now. And I'm good friends now with the guy who purchased his company, Mike. So they're running a good shop there. Yeah.
Mike and I run the same cohort.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. Mike seems like a good guy. Him and I have been chatting here lately. So man, that's so cool. What did your parents have to say? Right? Like, do your parents still look at you as the loser?
Yeah, they didn't believe it until I showed them the results. So I moved. So after living in Peoria for 10 months, I went to Sterling's event in LA. This is 2018, like January 2018. And I remember being like, LA is the spot to be. So everybody in that event was talking about moving to LA. There was 200 people there. Only like 3 of us did it. And I was one of those 3. So I literally packed my bags, risked leaving like corporate job. They were like, yeah, we might not keep you. And I was like, guys, I don't know. I don't want to live in Peoria anymore. I'm in LA. They ended up compromising. I moved there, tripled my cost of living overnight. Job stayed the same. So I remember being scared shitless. I'm like, how am I going to pay for this? And, but yeah, moved to LA. And then my parents at the time were like, okay, like go figure yourself out. You're only 22, 23. And then I remember a couple of years later when I left corporate, I told them about it. They still couldn't see like how much money I was making, you know, like they weren't seeing any of the numbers. We never really told them. Then I came back to Michigan after like 2021 and I bought a house. And they're like, damn, we thought this kid went bankrupt and that's why he left California to come back to Michigan. And now he just bought like a $500,000 house. So it was just, I mean, once they saw the results, they're like, oh, this is for real, for real. And
man, cool.
So I think parents only believe you when you show them results. And until then, don't wait for their praise. Just keep going. You know, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, that's so true. And it seems though, like your parents see, there's almost a discernment between support and permission, where I think so many new entrepreneurs, they look for permission. where it seemed like your parents gave you support. You know, it's like, even though we don't believe in what you're doing or see it, it's like, we still love you and support you, right? Like, they're probably going to fail, but we still support you. But
Yeah,
like, it just seems like most people need to get the parents to agree with, which is a whole different game.
it really is. And you know, for me, ever since I was a young kid, I remember feeling like this person doesn't live the life that I want. So why would
Yeah.
I ask them for their permission? So my dad was a truck driver. Mom works at a nursing home. Like, they don't know anything about coaching, consulting, building a business, entrepreneurship. So for me to go to them and be like, hey, should I invest $5,000 into Sterling's program? They wouldn't even understand.
Yeah.
So knowing me, I never mentioned it. And that's why, like, I never forget the dates when I made that decision. I never forget those moments because it was all me, all alone, being in the little
Yeah.
apartment and being like, this goes south, well, we'll figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Nobody needs to know. I remember Jordan even doing, I wanted to do a skydive for my 21st birthday. And nobody in my friend circle or my family has ever done a skydive. So it was
Yeah.
so logical to me. I was like, why would I even tell them about it? I'll do it and then inspire them versus me asking for their permission before I even do it because they've never done it. They're going to scare me.
Yeah.
So I
Of
literally
course.
go and I do the skydive and they're having me fill out the emergency contact sheet, right? 30 minutes before, I text my sister. I'm like, hey, you know, a year ago I was telling you about a skydive. I'm about to do it. Just don't tell parents. You're just on the list. Just don't worry about it. I go, we recorded in a GoPro and the video came out beautiful. I ended up posting it later that day on Facebook. And then my parents found out. Then my friends found out. And then half of them, like 6 of them, ended up doing it because I inspired them. Versus if
Man,
I had asked them, they would have been like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Like, you know, you just had a knee surgery a year ago. Like, you know, they would have put fear in my head. But
100%.
so, like, I think I learned early on that, like, ask people who are where you want to be. And sometimes maybe you live in the middle of nowhere. Maybe people listening to this, if you're a fitness coach trying to make it out and you're in the middle of nowhere, you don't have anyone doing it, like, don't ask for their permission. They don't understand. Like, it's okay. Like, go at it alone and then you'll inspire them later on.
Yeah, well said. And you know, just simply taking that action is truly a declaration of belief in yourself, and like, it's such a declaration and shift that happens, and that's why you remember that specific date. You probably remember the feeling. I bet you remember what you're wearing and like that moment, because there is a transformation that happens in that moment of declaring, you know what, I'm worth this chance at the very least. It's a really powerful experience. Uh, I actually went skydiving on my 25th birthday. Same thing. I decided the morning that I woke up, like, I'm going to go skydiving. And I didn't tell anybody either because I was terrified as well. And I'm like, I don't, same reasoning. I'm like, if I talk to anybody smart, they're going to tell me this is a bad idea. Like, it's not going to do it. And funny little side story around that. I go to this little like Poondunk place in Ohio. We get in I call my buddy Rob, he's a pilot, loves skydiving. I knew he would agree with it. He'd be like, yeah, I just went last week. Let's go. And so he shows up to go with me, and he has this girl with him, who this girl later became his wife, interestingly enough. But so we get on the plane, and I have this like kind of fear of heights. And so we're on this plane, and it's this rickety prop plane. It's got literal duct tape inside of it, like holding panels on the wall. And we bounce off the runway, we get lift, we get off, and I'm like, man, I don't know about this. And I was really thinking about backing out because the guy that they had, like, who was behind me, was every bit of 120 years old. Like, I'm like, this guy was so old. And I'm like, what if this guy dies in the middle of like jumping? So anyways, I look over and Rob's like, hey, check this out. Courtney, the girl who brought with him, who now is his wife, he's like, this is the first time she's ever been on a plane. I'm like, wait, she's never been on a plane before and she's jumping out of it? I'm like, all right, I gotta go through with this now.
No, 100%. You never forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny too, how like when you end up joining different programs, you end up getting around the right people. It's a similar experience as that, right? You end up seeing what other people are doing and you're like, well, if you can do it, I can too. Right. Like, there's nothing special or unique about you. No offense, but I could do this too.
Like, how much of life is just realizing that it is possible for you,
Mm,
you
yeah.
know? And I remember like being like joining Sterling's program. It was the biggest thing I got out of it. At the time, I was disappointed because I didn't make money because
Hmm.
I was so freaking green. I was so fresh, but it just exposed me to different ceilings. Like going to Sterling's event, I
Yeah.
remember back then, and IFCA, we're even like 10 times bigger than that. But I remember back then, I was like, this girl is making like 12K a month, like that, like whole, like that. That was the first time I heard that. And then shaking Sterling's hand, who was the first millionaire I met, and it was just like, now you start seeing like, dude, this is possible for me too. So every time
Yeah.
you do things, and I feel like every person that has done good in their life, they have those skydive stories. They have
Yeah.
those moments when they were all alone. and it could have gone either way, and they decided to do it anyway. And I tell my clients in IFCA too, I'm like, every time you decide that, you're building that character, like, hey, I'm a decision maker. Like, I do it. I do things that need to be done, right?
Yeah.
And then just, you know, exposing yourself to new circles. Like, I know you guys are part of a lot of masterminds. Like, it's all of us. Like, we have to be.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. You know, you mentioned like developing those character traits, and we talk about this a lot. It's something I got from Hermosi. It's like you need the character traits, the skills, and the beliefs. Well, it's very obvious where your character traits come from. When you're an immigrant, like you're bred to have perspective and work ethic and all of those things, right? But what I want to ask you is like, what were some skills that you sucked tremendously at, that you just had to beat your head against a wall and really figure out what were some of those skills? And then how did you like push through some of those like roadblocks?
In business?
Yeah, in business specifically.
Yeah, I would say like the biggest one being outreach.
Yeah.
I felt weird. At Sterling's program, they called it the messenger process. And I remember being like, man, I'll go through the X module, then I'll do it. And I remember there was another person in the program, and we both joined at the same time. And he just took off. And he's like one of the biggest guys in the space now. And he just took off very quickly. And I remember talking to him. I was like, what module are you on? Him telling me on the phone, he goes, man, like, I just like took the script that my coach told me and I'm just following it. And I was like, how is he so good? Turns out he was 2 years ahead of me. So he'd been trying for 2 years. So he had a lot of the beliefs already broken. So he was ready to go. I had a lot of baggage. So that was the skill where I was like, I would sit down, I would do everything else but that. So I would like read a book on copywriting. I would do everything but doing the messenger process. So, but I kept at it. I never thought about giving up. So over the years, the beliefs kept being broken and broken and broken. And eventually when I left my job, it was like, I was, very religious about it. So I wouldn't have my cup of coffee until I talked to like 20, 30 people in the morning.
Oh, that's great.
And then like, I was like, man, like I've become the person who can have this business because, Charlie Munger says the best way to have success is to actually deserve it. And I've always looked at myself as, okay, like, do I actually deserve that? If not, let's change something because I want to deserve that. Right. So back then it was, I think DM outreach was the hardest, then sales, just not knowing when to push, not knowing how to break beliefs, at first sales just looked like you're just, doing something that's sleazy or whatever. But when you do it for 5+ years, and after how many sales calls I've been on, I've realized like, it's just about talking to the person you care the most about. It's making them realize that, hey, all you got to do is make a decision, yes or no, right? And based on what you have told me, please make the best decision for you.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like I was just on a sales call earlier today, and it was funny because this guy I've known for 11 years, right, through college. And I was like, man, he had so many limiting beliefs. And I remember telling him, I was like, this is how you do it. And there was no sales script, but it was very much a sales script. But the sales script is part of who I am now, it feels like, So I would say the 2 skills to answer your question is outreach, being scared of it, and then sales, like just overall fear around it, feeling sleazy about it. And then the older I got, the more I realized everything is sales. Like, everybody is selling. It's just part of human nature. So
and something that you said there that I wanted to highlight is like, I call these like transformational decisions, that the more you make of those yourself and you see the result of these certain transformational decisions, and that could be as simple like the first decision that you made. You remember that date that you said yes, right? The more times you do that, the more proof you give yourself as to how important those decisions are, right? So then you get on a call with somebody and you watch their gears turn, you watch their mind work, and those objections come up. You're like, I know exactly what you're going through. This is a moment for you. And it's like, you got to say yeah. And you have such deep conviction there, when then it becomes less about the script and more about like, let me pull you to this side of a way of life. Right. I think that's when sales become really fun.
It really does. It really does. And you can relate to them in a better way. Like they look at you as a friend because you're genuine about it. You have that conviction about it.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you as a second part to that, like what were some of the most core beliefs that you had to push through? Would you say those kind of all relate, like the belief that you had around how you viewed sales and outreach, or were there any other major beliefs that you had to break through? Anything around money or anything else, like doubt?
Most definitely. I think around money and around profession.
Yeah.
Like I talk to the new IFCA students sometimes, and they're not fully proud of being a fitness coach yet.
Yeah.
They have other careers and they're like, I don't want to post on my personal profile. I don't want to do this because some people will find out. And I remember Jordan, while still being an engineer in healthcare consulting, sitting in planes, like traveling for work, and people next to me would ask me, what do you do for a living? And it was automatic to say engineer or healthcare consultant. And it took me like 6 months of constant revision to be like, oh, I own a fitness coaching business, right? We do this. And the first limiting belief was realizing that running my own business and helping people with health and fitness was just as noble, if not more noble, than whatever profession I was in beforehand, right? Because previously I attached a lot of identity to that profession, and I was like, man, that's badass. When I tell that story, people are like, oh, Mo is smart, right? And
yeah, sure.
So that was the first one. But the money belief was, it was realizing that there's cost to going to the next level. So whenever I invested in a program, like Sterling's program was just one of many I invested in. Like after that, I didn't stop. I was like, okay, like now I know what I'm lacking in. Okay, let's join a sales program. Let's join a copywriting. Let's join a marketing. Like it was like, I realized there's a bridge to that outcome, and I had to lay one brick at a time. But those were all like choosing to invest in myself, but still being very smart. Like I still drive my Nissan Altima. I can afford, like I can literally afford, my dream car right now if I wanted to, but I don't, because there's like, I don't see value from it. So I think I started looking at money as a way to improve me and my character and my skills versus a way to just always be improving my lifestyle, because there's some things that don't matter as much to me. Like after I have a house, a coffee machine, and some basics that I need, it doesn't matter as much to me what car I'm driving. So I look at myself, and so I think that money believes like, hey, instead of saying, oh, this program is too expensive or this is that, I always ask myself, like, what's the cost of not doing it?
Yeah.
Like that is, and that's, I think all of you listening to this, make that part of your identity, especially if you want to be a business owner, because, Jordan probably makes those decisions about hiring now. Like, it's like, should I bring this person on or no? And it's like the cost of not bringing them on, right? What's the cost of not hiring this mentor? So I think at the end of the day, a lot of breaking beliefs around that, but my parents still have their old beliefs. My sisters, my family members, they would still have their old beliefs. I just don't talk to them about it.
Sure.
They have their lives and I have mine. As a business owner, you should definitely have different beliefs than people that don't have businesses.
You have to. Yeah, you have to be in that like 1-2% of really weird people that every now and then you'll find somebody that will relate to you, but you have to work to put yourself in the rooms with people who can relate to you, right? Man, that's all powerful stuff. I'm curious, like you started to allude to it, but I always like talking about how people view money nowadays. Like I was talking to Ian Stanley. If you're familiar with him, he's a famous copywriter, like email marketer. He was at the event that we were at. Okay. And he gave like a really interesting visual. He's like, money wants to flow. Money is like a hose. And if you think about a hose and if you kink one side of it, then the money cannot flow. Money's energetic, right? And if you're the kind of person who you take money and you just put it in a closet and you lock it away, you're like, hey, you're not going anywhere. Like the money will stop flowing in. That money wants to go make other friends. It wants to go out and network and like bring people back. Yeah. But you have to allow that money to flow. Otherwise you're kinking the hose. I just thought that was an interesting way to think about it. Right. So like, how do you view money now that you have money as compared to when you were broke?
Yeah. I think after all your debts are paid, you start looking at money differently.
Yeah.
And you realize that I view money as a way to do the things I love with the people I love. And that's very important, because there was a time in my life when I was just taking in money and I was just like, keep it. And that felt better, like just holding it. And then I realized that there was not enough motivation to make more.
Yeah.
So then what I did was I started giving.
Yeah.
Donating, charities, different things, like small amounts, but there was like a certain emotion attached with it, because now when I make more money, I donate a little bit more too. Like there's a certain percentage that goes to that. And that has really helped, because imagine you're like, for me, especially, I was living in, downtown San Diego at the time, making good money. It's like 3 years ago. And I started making good money, and I would close new sales and like, my way of invoicing, like payments, like it looked really good. And then those numbers get transferred into my bank account. But in reality, like my day-to-day life wasn't changing. I would go to the gym. Like it was just the same. So I was like, okay, like what if adding another zero, what would that do to my life? Not much. What changed? Not much. And I remember like the first day, Jordan, I hit my first 20K month. It was 2 days, it was 2 months after leaving my corporate job. And it was like, September, and me and, Kevin Hamidi, we've been good friends for a while. We set a bet and we're like, yeah, we're going to hit it. And we both hit it. And I remember talking to him at like 11 o'clock on that last day of September. And I'm like, Kevin, I did it. Like, this is like a new barrier. And I was so happy because that was a goal I've been wanting for so long. And dude, the next day I had this one client who's like a big internet marketer, and I was training him in person because I wanted to learn from him. And the next day I had to train him at 5 a.m. And, I went to bed at like midnight, woke up at 3:30. I started driving to the gym. And on the drive over to the gym, I literally had tears in my eyes. And I was just thinking, looking at the sky, like the moonlight, the San Diego ocean on the side. And I remember thinking, I'm like, man, I'm proud of myself. Because I feel like Stephen Pressfield talks about how have a work ethic that even the gods would vouch for you. Like, this person is reliable. Like, I looked at myself that day, I proved to myself that I've worked so hard for this goal. God or the universe gave me that goal. And I'm still out here at 3:30 in the morning, back in the line. Right. And that was like those days I feel like all of us need to prove to ourselves that we are reliable. We are who we say we are. So those are like some of the moments where I think I hold dear to my heart. The question I forgot. What was your question?
No, that was powerful, man. You did answer it in a way better way than the question was even posed. I think that's great. Just kind of how you view money as like an energetic,
Yeah, because money is, money gives you options, right? Like it allows me to travel. It allows me to do things for my loved ones. And like my parents, they were flying to Pakistan. My parents don't ask me for anything, like they're very good, smart financially. They work really hard, but they never ask me for anything. And I remember my dad was telling me, they're going to Pakistan to go visit family. And my cousin was going to book their flights. And I just called him. I was like, use my credit card. He's like, I was like, no, use it. Like, so it felt really nice. Like my dad's like, he had teary eyes when he heard me. So, it's like you use money for things that you love with the people you love to do things you love.
Yeah.
And it just gives you options versus just holding it, and also being better, like using money to learn more, to be more. So you can, like, I look at myself every year and I'm like, what was I like a year ago? And you can probably do this too, where if you post content regularly, you can go into your memories.
Yeah, it's the best.
What kind of content was I posting 2 years ago? Right.
Yeah.
And then just evaluating yourself and being like, man, I've grown a lot.
Yeah. I'm usually like, God, I was an idiot. Yeah. Like, man, this guy's so cringe. No, that's really powerful. And yet, I heard a quote one time. It's like, money can't buy happiness, but people who say that usually haven't given enough away. And yeah, doing things for your parents hits different. I was able to retire my mom and give her a salary to like help out with the family. And although I'm probably going to fire her and tell her she needs to go back to the nursing floor, but no, I'm kidding. That was just a powerful day, and like she was crying and just so thankful. Little things like that, man. And I'm going to tell Jackson, he's only 10 months old, but I'm like, I want a flight to Pakistan by the time you're at least 15. That's the new bar. So yeah, no, that's super cool stuff, man. Let me ask you this. I want to ask you 2 more questions, both a little bit more tactically. What are like 3 to 4 systems, tools? It could be routines, but things that have like massively helped you in your business. This could be simply systems you use, or again, routine related. What are things that you're like, man, this thing has really helped me in my business?
Number 1, not being shy to use my personal profiles to promote what I do. Like being one, and not being like, I have this separate business page for that.
Yeah. I forget what a block that is for so many. It seems so obvious, but yeah,
it's so big. And like I would say the first 300 customers I had worked with were all college friends, high school friends, people that I've known, right? And so just like being there and just being like, this is who I am, and not being afraid of it. So now when I walk into like, friend circles, they all know who I am. Like, there's no hiding. There's like, it's very clear. So I think that was the best thing I did, versus because at that time I was considering, I was like, maybe I start a new thing. Maybe I start a different Instagram, different this, different that. And I think that would have been way less effective. So first of all, being like in true alignment with what I've become, right? Like my profession. Second thing I would say is never being afraid to invest in yourself. And there's a cost, and this is a very real thing, and this might help a lot of beginners. Guys, listen, there's a cost to the level that you're trying to get to. And that cost is either your time or your finances, right? It's gonna, like, there's a cost, there's a sacrifice to be made because you're not where you want to be. And every time I'm in that position, I'm like, okay, I can either sacrifice some of the money I have and invest in the higher level, like learn to be there, or I can change my city and go be around those people. Like there's got to be some sacrifice, because if I don't, I stay the same. And that sacrifice is the biggest. I don't want to stay the same, right? I want to improve and be better. So I think the second tactic that helped me was analyzing the business and being like, okay, we haven't really grown here, or this area is lacking. Okay, who can I hire? Who can I get help from in this very particular area? Because the more clear you are on your business problem, the better your mentors can help you. If you walk into a business mentorship program and you have no idea, you're like, yeah, I saw a mess. Like, I don't even know where to help you. Versus if you're like, Mo, marketing is great. We're getting 20 leads a month. Content is great. We're just struggling with closing sales. Now we know exactly what to focus on, right? And every mentor, that's our dream. Like, tell us something that's, of course, yeah, it's like you have that level of clarity. And that was the second one. And third one, I think, not being afraid to hire or fire.
Yep.
There, the first, luckily, my very first client ended up becoming our first assistant coach. And that was like a great investment. And he, it was great. But I've had to fire setters. I had to hire setters. I had to do certain things where I was like, man, like, this is just not working out. And earlier in my career, I was too tolerant. Like 6 months would go by, no results. And I'm still like, no, they have potential. Like, and I was doing them a disservice too. Like, I was afraid of having the tough conversation, giving them like, hey, you're on this, period where we need to actually figure this out and fix it. So those are the three that I think would help the most. And for those of you in the beginner stage, I think the biggest thing that'll help you the most is making talking to people a non-negotiable. Whether that's in outreach, whether that's in, phone calls, whatever you want to do that every day, because every business does it. And in the beginning, you think like, oh, big businesses don't do this. Big businesses don't send DMs. Big businesses, like, the thing is, they're spending millions in advertising. They're spending millions in PR. You don't have that, right? So you have to have those skills. And it's the biggest skill you can learn early on. Because even if you're a great fitness coach, you start doing that, your business will blow up. If you're like a great fitness coach, not talking to as many people, and the bad fitness coach is talking to a lot of people, they'll win over you. Their business will be 10 times bigger than you, right? Yeah. And they might lose in the back end, but at front end, they'll get a lot of sales. So it's like, I think that those are the four that will help beginners the most, where outreach being like probably the biggest one. Yeah. Like, you can get in the habit of doing it consistently.
Yeah, man, you crushed that. That's powerful. It's like, I forget who I heard put it this way, but it's like, you have a fitness coach that's explaining, don't know what's going on. I'm just not getting clients. It's like, cool. How many people did you talk to today? And it's like, well, I'm posting content, I'm making calls to action. It's like, cool. How many people did you talk to today? It's like, oh, I'm doing it. Like, look, go talk to humans. Like, we're a human-based business, especially personal training. And the advantage that you have when it's something as intimate of that, they're going to work with a competitor who actually talked to them. So go talk to them.
And I think, like, last note on that is something I learned very early on. It was like a Facebook post that one of my friends made. And she said, when you are running a business, you have to literally get on the top of your roof and promote it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the mentality you should have. Whereas, hey, I have this amazing solution to a problem that so many people in the world are facing. You better know that I can solve it. Like, at least you deciding to work with me is a whole other thing, but at least you would know, right? And Jordan, for me, the biggest insult even today is sometimes, like, some of my friends I've known for a long time, they still like come across me and we just get on a phone and they're like, I didn't realize you do this.
Yeah. You're like, damn it.
Damn it, right? And that feels like such an insult, because I'm like, man, I still suck as a marketer. But the point is, like, a lot of us think like, oh, like, I don't want to overpost. I don't want to do too much. I don't want them to get mad at me. And it's like, no, Instagram, Facebook, if you have 1,500 friends, maybe 100 are barely seeing your stuff.
Yeah, nobody's paying attention to you that close.
There are things going on. So it's just like, get in the habit of talking about it, because that's the only way you're going to grow, and it's important.
100%, man. Yeah, I always say, like, if you want people to be more interested in your stuff, like, you got to talk about your offer at least 4 or 5 times more than you're probably comfortable with. So whatever that comfort level is, go ahead and just 4x that, and that's going to lead to more results.
Remember that.
Yeah,
That's a great takeaway. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is great, man. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I'm really just excited to keep getting to know you, man. I think you're a badass, obviously extremely smart, and I'm just so thankful that you did have the courage to take the unconventional route, because I think the things that you're going to do, the people you're going to help and serve, deserve that. And had you not made that hard decision, again, you'd have left all these people stranded. And so I'm sure if they could thank you, they would too, and I'm sure that they will.
Yeah, it's fun. I call them the defining moments, right?
Hmm.
It's those moments that's where you make the decisions that change the trajectory of your life, and they take courage,
Yeah, 100%.
and you can practice courage by going to skydive. You can practice that. Like I did that skydive in 2015, and I had done a bunch of little things up to. So in 2017, when it was my time to decide to invest in a mentorship, I think my muscles were already fine-tuned.
Sure.
So I think I look at a lot of these decisions like that. Every
Sure.
time you decide, are you building yourself up or are you tearing yourself down?
Yeah. Have you been skydiving since?
I want to do it, but I want to do it in a very scenic place. So I want to do it in
Yeah.
Dubai, because
Wow,
Dubai
that would be
have
dope.
the Palm Islands and stuff. So whenever I go to Dubai in the next year or so, that's the goal.
That would be dope. Yeah, we went skydiving over cornfields in Ohio, so I'm kind of the same way. I haven't gone back since, but maybe man, I want to go to Dubai bad. Let me know when you plan that, because that's like high on my bucket list right now.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Well, thanks guys. I appreciate you all listening. And Mo, just let everybody know where they can find you at if they want to connect with you on social media. What's the easiest way to talk to Mo?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, all of it is Mo Ghias, Moeghias. You'll find me.
Right on. Easy enough. Well, thanks guys. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure to connect with Mo, and we'll see you all in the next one.